Okay, it's 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you all for joining us here today for this month's customer education session on commission plan. My name is John Stulak, and I'm going to be conducting the session. I am one of the senior consultants here at EthoTech. I handle many of our implementations. Some of your names look very familiar to me, so I know I've participated in your implementation. So I'm going to be conducting the session. The goal of these sessions each month is to expose you to specific sections of the commission plan functionality that you may not be familiar with or know about, or maybe you are familiar with it but are not using it and want to learn more about it. So that's the goal of our sessions each month. I've muted all of you. All the attendees are muted at this point since the session is being recorded. If you have a question, you can use the chat functionality of Ring Central to ask your question. You have the options to chat to all attendees or send one specifically to myself or to Stephanie Rasmussen. She is also here from EthoTech. Feel free to chat either one of us. If we're not able to get to your question in today's session, we'll either answer it offline or by email. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and get started. In today's session, we're going to dive into the use of the commission plan rate override functionality to discover how to handle your commission exceptions by automatically overriding the commission rate that would normally calculate for a salesperson, customer, and item combination. But before we take a look at the rate override functionality, I'd like to take a moment to discuss how commissions are normally calculated using the commission plan matrix setup window. So on this slide, I have an example of a configuration, a very simple configuration on the commission plan matrix setup window. Each of you that are using this product will have something set up here to help drive your commission rules. And that's what this window does. It defines the rules by which commissions will be calculated for your company. It uses a multi-dimensional model based on a combination of the salesperson plan, a customer plan, and an item plan when determining both the commission rate and the type of calculation that the program is going to perform when calculating a commission. So since it's really difficult to display a three-dimensional matrix with a Dynamics GP window, commission plan presents a single layer at a time with each of the layers represented by the salesperson plan. That's what you're seeing on this current window, a salesperson plan that I have called inside reps. The commission rate to be paid to each salesperson who is using this plan is determined by the combination of the customer and item plan in the scrolling window. In my example, you can see that I have commissionable customers and commissionable and non-commissionable items. And at the combination of those, we're driving a 10% rate for commissionable items and 0% for no commission. Make note that if no match is found in this matrix, if there is not a combination found, then a $0 commission with a commission type of no commission is calculated for the sales document line that's in question. Now, your system could have several plans in here. This is extremely simple setup that we're showing today. You could have several different item plans that drive different product groupings. You could have different types of customers. Maybe you pay different rates based on the first year your customer has purchased from you, or the second year or third year. That would drive different customer plans. And all these could be then applied to even a different salesperson plan. So we frequently get asked, how many plans do we need to create? And that's a really great question. So to determine, for example, how many salesperson plans you need, you might want to consider a question like this. If different salespeople sell the same item to the same customer, does the commission rate vary? If the answer is yes, then you're going to need as many salesperson plans as you have commission rates that are based on the salesperson. For customers, you can ask a question like, if the same salesperson sells the same item to a different customer, does the commission rate vary? And if the answer is yes there, then you need as many customer plans as commission rates that you have that vary by customer. And that same concept is true for items. You can ask yourself the same question. If the same salesperson sells different items to the same customer, does the rate vary? If yes, then you're going to need multiple item plans. So your particular system may be set up with several different types of plans into combinations in this window. So that's the standard way that the commission program calculates a commission. So now, what if you have exceptions to these rules? These are the rules maybe that hit 75, 80, 90% of your commission plans, and now you have some exceptions. What do? This is where the commission plan rate override functionality comes into play. This functionality is available to commission plan Apex customers. So there's two products we have: Commission Plan Keystone, Commission Plan Apex. This functionality is available in the Apex program. So because we added this functionality, handling your exceptions just got a whole lot easier. As I just showed, traditionally, commission rates are driven by the customer item salesperson plan combinations. And that methodology works in a lot of cases. But when you have exceptions to handle, the window that I'm going to show you here momentarily, called rate override functionality, will give you the ability to handle those commission exceptions. Now, when might you use this functionality? I have some examples up here. When your company uses date-specific commission rates. For instance, you could have new or seasonal or overstock items that you want to promote so that they'll sell. You may want to put a date wrapper around that. Maybe new customers. I mentioned this earlier. You add a new customer, and maybe for the first year that customer is purchasing from you, there's a different commission rate than in future years. New salespeople. Maybe you have a new sales rep that you want to provide them with a little more income up front. Maybe you give them a higher percentage in the beginning and then drop it off later, or vice versa, depending on your needs for your company. So it allows you, this window allows you to set up an automatic override without the need to create any new salesperson plans, customer plans, or item plans. So many of you, when you're trying to handle your exceptions, I know I get into this when I'm consulting or when I'm supporting some of our customers. They want to add something that's very simple for maybe for one specific item or one specific sales rep, and it's only going to last for a period of time. Prior to this functionality, they had to create a whole new plan and then update their matrix and update all of the appropriate records. Now you don't have to do that. So what I'd like to do is show you some of this functionality in the product. Whoops, we're not to questions yet. Okay, so I'm going to open up our rate override setup window. So there are several scenarios I've defined in here to give you some real-world examples of how we've seen the functionality of this window get used with commission plan when there are commission exceptions. You heard me mention earlier that maybe you have a requirement where the customer moves from a new account status to existing account status. And maybe you want your sales reps to focus on new business. And so you might offer higher incentives in the first year than in following years. You could use this override ID that I have set up here for that scenario. So let me explain what you're seeing. I've set up an override ID called January. These are any new customers I've added in January. So down here in my scrolling window, you're seeing a list of all of the customers that have been added in that particular month. For a period of January 1 through December 31 of this year, the calculation that I'm driving for these customers is 15% of the sale amount. That's what I want to pay any sales rep for any item. So one of the things you can note here is that I can put specific sales reps here if I had that need for these customers, and even specific items. So you could have a combination in here. In my example, I'm making this particular commission calculation good for any sales rep for any item, but only for these specific customers. Once 12/31 is over and we hit 1/1/2019, then the program goes back to what you have configured in your commission plan matrix setup window. And it starts using the plan combinations that you already have defined. So one way you could set up your system to make use of this type of a scenario is you could set up all of your existing customer calculations in the matrix and then come over here to put an override in. And so that's one example. We've made it really easy to copy a current configuration and add it to a setting. So let's say that I have this set for 2018, and you'll see that I've already copied that configuration and created one for 2019. And you can see now my rate is 12%. If I wanted to then create a new date range, but for the same set of customers, this is all I would have to do. I put in my new date range. So I'm going to put in 2010. No, not 2010, sorry. I'm going to put in 01/01/2020. And I'm going to go to 12/31/2020. I can just say that I want to copy this date range. Let me tab off of that field, copy the date range. Whoops, let me choose the right option here. I believe I need to save it and then go back. Of course. Try to set something up in a demo and it doesn't work. Well, when I did this earlier, let me just show you what occurred. I was able to copy everything from 2018 to 2019. And when I got here, this is what it looked like. And then I just came in here and changed the rate. So I can type in 10 and just arrow down to whatever I need to do here. So that's one way to copy a particular date range. You can also copy override IDs into another one so you can make use of the same configuration and then make some alterations to it. So that's one example. Let me show you another. So I've set up this particular example where I am paying my international customers a different rate than I am my domestic customers. Now you can see there's different rates in here, 4%, 6%, etc. But all of these customers represent different countries. So the way I inserted this is we have a mass insert rates option you can choose. And this makes it really easy to configure this window. You'll notice in our mass insert, I have the ability to choose salespeople, customers, and items based on various criteria. I can use classes, I can use the plans. So in this particular one, when I was defining my international customers, I chose customer class, and I took a look at my classes, and I took my Australian customers, and I inserted them into this window. I updated my customer list, so there's my Australian customers. And then I told the program, I want to calculate based on a percentage of sale and whatever my rate was. When I processed that, it inserted these records into my override setup window, so I didn't have to manually type these all in. So as you can see, this becomes really useful if you start having some combinations. Maybe my Australian customers are just being sold to by my outside reps. So I could insert them into the window as well, and then define a commission calculation. And then when I process, it updates my window, and then I have the exact commission exceptions that I need to override my matrix. So this window is extremely useful for inserting a lot of data, especially if you have thousands upon thousands of items and customers in your database. Let me show you one more example here. So in this particular one, you can see I have a list of items with a certain percentage. These are my seasonal items. So what I've defined here is for each quarter of the year, in my example business, there's differences in products that sell each quarter. So I've set up these 4 quarters for the year with different rates that will drive different commission amounts during maybe slow times of the year, or maybe even when I know I have a lot of sales happening in a particular month, I might want to drive some other item sales up in that particular month or that quarter. This could be used for overstock items. You want to decrease your inventory. You can increase maybe the commission rate to drive incentives to the salesperson to get rid of those items. Same thing with discontinued items. So you really could make use of this however you need based on these date ranges. Let me show you one more thing. Let's say I wanted to set up a scenario for my inside reps. I could put in a start date. We're in April. Let's say I'm starting on May 1st. I want to have a particular set of products as a promotion. So let's say I'm going to promote my memory sticks in that month. I'm going to go ahead and insert these from my classes. And since it's just my inside reps, I'm going to go ahead and choose them. Whoops, I got to actually insert it after I update the list. Let me go back to my items, class, my memory items. Update my list. If I wanted to drive a percent of margin, let's call it 20%. I process that, I create the records, and then they show up in my window for all of those sales reps. Now, since I left this end date empty, this runs from May 1st forward. It has no end date. So until I decide I want to end it, this is going to be my structure. So again, at the beginning of the webinar, I was explaining how the matrix setup window is our standard way of driving our commission calculations based on plans, salesperson plans, customer plans, item plans. We do have some companies, with that being said, that don't even set up that window. They have such specific needs where items overlap between customers and sales reps, et cetera, that they just set up everything in this window. They don't put an end date on it, on the date wrapper, and this is their structure that runs. If they ever have a change in the coming year, let's say that all of a sudden at the end of the year, I have a change and I need to update my structure. I just put an end date here. So then this particular one will end on 12/31 and I can start a new one beginning on 1/1/2019. So as you can see, there's a lot of flexibility. It's kind of the sky is the limit in here. You could be as granular as a rep, a customer, an item has a specific calculation you want to perform. Or you can have these groupings. What's nice is having the date wrapper so that you don't have to go in and make plan changes in the software. You can just let the program know that we've hit a new date and now we have a new structure to incorporate. So that went much quicker than I expected. So what I'd like to do now is open up for questions. I'm just going to leave my windows open. Give me a second to check to see if anybody chatted any questions to us. Doesn't look like it. I'm going to unmute everybody for the moment. So if you'd like to ask a question, go right ahead. Everyone is unmuted.
Hi, this is Pat Glazer. I have a question.
Yes.
Are these dates based on invoice dates?
So yes, they are. They are based on the invoice date from your sales document.
Okay.
Very good question.
Okay. I also have a specific question, Serge Tessier from APCHQ.
Yes.
When you prepare your sales plan and your commission plan, and you determine that for a salesperson commission plan, that the commissions will be issued or processed when the item is paid. Okay. What I'm trying to understand is that well, throughout the month we will be making sales, we will be cashing, of course, payments, and let's say, on the 5th of May, I will want to process commissions between 1st and 31st of April. Okay. And I know that my commissions are due when paid. So will the payment be included only if it's between April 1st and April and April 31st, or will it include also all payments made at the beginning of May? Because usually we put our dates. We're trying to limit things to April, for example.
Okay. So thank you for your question. Very good question. It's a different topic of functionality, just so I can point that out. I'm going to answer it for you here and show you another window that answers the question.
Yep.
But at the point that you're asking the question, all of this has already occurred. The calculation has already taken place. So what you're talking about is what we call processing commissions.
Absolutely.
And give me a second here just to get an ID associated here. I got to close one of my windows. And then I'll show you. So what you're referencing is using, instead of document date or posting date, you're using the date that the document is paid.
Yes.
And you're going to put in a specific date range that tells the program, I only want to include documents that were paid in the month of April. So the way that you do that, I'm going to give you an example here. Let me set up my system so I can do it. I didn't have it prepared for this, but I know it takes me a moment, as you can see, to do that. Okay, date document paid. So there were kind of two questions you asked in this. Let me answer the first one I believe you asked. If I just put in a from date, and an end and a to date here as of the end of the month.
Absolutely.
What that'll do is that'll only include an invoice where Dynamics GP set the date the invoice was paid to one of the dates in April 1st through April 30th.
Absolutely.
Now the document date could have been in 2017 or a previous period, but we're actually just looking at the date it was paid.
Yep.
So that's how you would set that up to take care of it.
But my complementary question to that, I understand what you're doing here, the document paid, you're putting the focus on that, that's good. However, will it will just apply to commissions that will be due when the document is paid? Because if for your case you're a salesperson and I've determined that for your personal needs you will be only paid commissions when the invoice is posted instead of when the invoice is paid. So this will not affect that decision.
So your salespeople can have one of those two settings.
Absolutely.
You could have some salespeople that are getting paid when the document is paid, and you can have other salespeople getting paid when your documents are booked or posted.
Actually,
because we're tracking that separate.
Yes.
The program knows which documents to include for each rep. So what we always recommend when you're doing something like that is to set up a class where you're putting all the reps getting paid when the document is paid in one class, and then you're putting all the reps who are getting paid on posted documents in a second class. And the reason you want to do that is because you're going to process twice, once for each class of rep. The one with documents getting paid on documents that are paid uses this date range. For the other ones, when the documents are posted, you're using the regular either document date or the GL posting date for those.
But I understand you want to make two processings. I understand that. But my question is, if Mr. Stanley, my salesperson, is only getting commission paid when the document is paid, or the opposite actually, let's say you're getting your commissions paid when the invoice is due. If I work with the date document is paid to process commissions, it should not affect you because you're working on when the document is posted.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you
Am I making sense here?
Yes, and I can probably answer the question in a slightly different way, but what I would ask is let us get with you after the webinar.
Absolutely.
And I'd be happy to go over it with you, maybe even show you it.
Sure.
So yeah, I understand and I'll just ask you if you could just send us a quick email to sales@ethotech.com.
Sure.
We'll get with you on
it.
it.
Go on. That's great.
So, yep. Thank you for your questions, though. This is a very important part of the product that we hadn't planned on talking about today, but it is very important and very valuable for a lot of our customers to be able to have the program automatically tracking paid documents versus non-paid documents, so that the correct ones get submitted when you're processing commissions. So, thank you. So we have about 1 more minute left. Is there any other questions? It's okay. So if you have other questions and you want a chance for free food or coffee, or if you have a topic suggestion, and you can see some of the other things we asked for: questions, comments, compliments, contact information for your commission plan users in your organization. Any of that information, you send it to sales@ethotech.com, and we're going to draw a name, and you'll get either free food or coffee from us. We'll let you choose by 8 p.m. Eastern today. So thank you all very much for being here. We appreciate you as our customers, and we appreciate you spending this 30 minutes with us. We look forward to seeing you next month in our next session. Take care and have a good day.
Thank you.